This MA research dissertation sought to understand how person-centred counsellors feel about using pre-therapy and contact reflections, with a particular interest in how this understanding might relate to attitudes and provision of counselling and psychotherapeutic support of people with learning disabilities. I've worked with people with learning disabilities for over 25 years in large communities in the UK here, primarily in a hands-on supporting role, and in this time have not come across pre-therapy and contact reflections. Reflecting, however, on the description of both during a lecture in the first year of my MA, I recognised the basis of what I had been trained and had trained others in how to relate and communicate with people with learning disabilities. Similarly, I was not aware of the term psychological contact, yet also recognised aspects of this, the importance of meeting an individual as they are, and this forming the basis on which a mutual and therapeutic relationship could be built, which is central to the ethos of LASH and the support it seeks to provide. Reflecting further on my professional experience, I was very aware of there being an inadequate understanding of and response to identifying and supporting people with learning disabilities with their mental health and emotional needs among the healthcare profession, leading to an over-reliance on medication, limited opportunities for accessing therapeutic support, and too often unnecessary and often inhumane hospitalisation. My reading for the research sadly confirmed much of my experience. The process. The research involved semi-structured interviews with students from the university I attended. When initially I had only 2 responses, I broadened the recruitment out to students within the UK who had attended a lecture on pre-therapy as part of their course. However, this broader reach did not bring in potential candidates, and the final number of interviewees was 3. The lack of uptake in interviewees could suggest a gap in the teaching of pre-therapy on person-centred courses, or a reluctance on the part of students to consider this in their practice within and beyond training. Could it also be symptomatic of a sense of the specialisation of supporting people with learning disability, and others where psychological contact is absent or fluctuating, that increases the risk of such clients being overlooked, further increasing the likelihood of serious mental health difficulties and of their marginalisation within mental health services? And being perceived as wholly specialised, could this be raising questions for students and others about additional costs of further training and the likelihood of work in this field, which bears further investigation? My findings. Interviewees felt, despite some initial anxiety, that with some additional professional support, such as supervision, more case studies, more class time, they would feel comfortable to use contact reflections and believe that using pre-therapy and contact reflections was empowering for the individuals it is used with. The main issue appeared to be a difficulty in articulating what psychological contact is. This in turn highlighted a lack of opportunity to develop and explore their theoretical and practical understanding of psychological contact, including enabling a deeper understanding and awareness of its place within the person-centred approach, and how, as Portner argues, the practice of contact reflections can facilitate a deeper understanding of the core conditions of unconditional positive regard and empathic reflections in relation to any client. Alongside this, also identified was the need for opportunities to explore the ways in which contact is and can be lost, and also the need to explore how to respond to a loss of contact in a session, which could then open out for students a wider range of clients that person-centred practitioners can work with, including those who might dissociate during a session. More broadly, a finding was that practitioners of pre-therapy need to provide more case studies of pre-therapy in action and the ways in which psychological contact can be established and maintained, and what is possible as a result. And finally, the need for dialogue between learning disability teams, clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, pre-therapy practitioners, and learning disability services about provision for this client group. This is a client group whose marginalisation in society increases the risk of poor mental health and emotional distress. The research paper highlighted the lack of variety, flexibility, and knowledge of the range of resources that are available to support people with learning disabilities, and that as a result, their mental health is further marginalised, and that as is their support. It also raises the question of how far this lack of resource might relate to a lack of understanding of the centrality of psychological contact, that a focus on the core conditions fails to identify the foundational nature of psychological contact, without which there is no relationship to have a core of. It is the basis on which a relationship can begin, and in conjunction with the core conditions of unconditional positive regard, empathic reflections, and congruence, can lead to a therapeutic relationship. In failing to recognise its fundamental role in the therapeutic relationship, is psychological contact itself being marginalised, and how might this apply to other modalities? And in doing so, is it further marginalising many in need of mental health support in our society? As a result of this research, myself and another student worked with a lecturer who teaches on Pretherapy to develop resources to help students understand pretherapy, contact work, and reflections. When we had received the lecture in our first year, I noticed how many people struggled with the concept of contact reflections. Pre-lecture readings weren't necessarily enough to help people understand the concept, and doing role plays was uncomfortable for many. They're expressing a sense that the concreteness of contact reflections might come across as patronising, or they're not fully understanding its purpose to meet and to be met, the fundamentals of all relationship. Our intention in creating the video resource was to demonstrate contact reflections in action and have students view and use this as a tool to get a practical understanding of contact reflections prior to the lecture, in order for this to help open up conversations. It was used for the first time this year, with some positive reflections afterwards. Alongside this, I've begun working with staff and service users in L'Arche to open out conversations on attitudes, perceptions, thoughts and feelings in relation to supporting the mental health and emotional needs of people with learning disabilities. A big part of this so far has been identifying and naming what they are already doing, but largely have not recognised as mental health support. Demystifying the provision of mental health support, a reminder that it is both the day-to-day provision of affirming person-centred support, as well as being able to identify and respond to specific problems and difficulties an individual may be experiencing. It has highlighted both the similarities and differences in attitude and understanding between those receiving and those providing support, and the need to create and maintain a culture where mental health in all its aspects can be readily spoken of without judgment. It has thus far confirmed the lack of resources and support out there for people with learning disability, the need for dialogue between all the different parts of learning disability services, and the importance of a holistic approach to support of all people, including people with learning disabilities, supporting and enabling them physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The whole human person. Thank you. If you would like to drop any thoughts, comments, questions, I'd be really interested. My email address is at the first slide, amwilson@yahoo.com, and I really welcome any thoughts, comments, ideas. Thank you very much.